Mono, you told me there would be bugs here.
Refinery activated.
Yeah, that's what the Federation told me.
Confetti's can't get
It's
anything
not
right.
about the bugs we find, it's about the bugs we make along the way.
Careful how you finish that up. Yeah, I gotta kill you for that.
Hey guys, Mono here. This is Starship Troopers Extermination. It came out a few days ago on Early Access. This is being made by Offworld, the creators of Squad and Postscriptum, so it's quite the deviation for them to go from realistic multiplayer shooters to this completely over-the-top sci-fi PvE game. So let's dive right into it, see if they got it right, go over the cool stuff and the not so cool stuff. So first off, as I mentioned, this is a PvE game. Game modes basically involve jumping into an area with a bunch of 4-player squads in order to complete a series of objectives, like mining some minerals or clearing out a few locations. And eventually you build up a base at the end of the level that you need to defend from a seemingly endless swarm of enemies in what is probably the coolest part of the game itself and the most faithful one to the movie. Everything goes to hell really fast.
The base is under
Retreat! You will stronghold this shit.
The bugs are tearing everyone apart, there's chaos and confusion, and any illusions of your team being this organized and disciplined group of soldiers goes out the window really fast as everyone is too overwhelmed by what's going on. The base building is extremely well done, though it does take some time to get used to the keybinds. You take out a building gun by pressing B, and then you switch between the place blueprint mode and the build/repair mode on the gun by pressing R. If you press B again, you just store the gun and take out your rifle. I found this control scheme to be a bit confusing. In fact, the control scheme is a bit all over the place. Proximity chat is bound to Y instead of being lower on the keyboard like C or V, like most games do. And there's a couple of other things that are kind of odd about just the key use and placement. I wish you had one key for building and another for setting up blueprints to have this like distinct thing instead of having to hit R to not reload but switch modes on this building gun. I don't know. But you can only set up bases in specific areas. You don't really have a lot of time to do it once you actually need to do it, and you have to rely on your teammates to make smart decisions of where to put the automated turrets, where to place ramps or electric fences, and so on to be able to actually defend once the time comes as you're waiting for extraction. So I think it's a really cool concept, this idea of this joint base building with a bunch of random people, which obviously is a bit complicated, but it's definitely a lot of fun. The mission structure is also pretty solid, though it is also quite limited. You clear an area, you build these refineries, and then you have to ferry these canisters back from the refineries to the base a couple of times while the bugs are getting more and more numerous and aggressive. This being early access, I think the current missions are good enough to have some fun and try out the different aspects of the game, but I do think expanding on this mission variety will be key to the game's longevity. However, my biggest complaint right now has to do with the actual shooting itself. The guns feel completely underwhelming, and I think it mostly comes down to two things. One, the sound design is pretty bad. The tone of the guns is too high, they don't feel punchy, they don't feel strong. And the second part of it is the hit feedback on the bugs is pretty non-existent. One of the main aspects of the movie that made the scenes where they fight the bugs look so cool and realistic back in 1997 was all the bits that would just come off flying from them. All the chunks of flesh and the legs getting shot up and getting torn apart and struggling to keep walking with half their body missing. There is unfortunately none of that here. If not for a giant hit marker in the middle of your crosshairs that lights up every time you land a hit, and even less you know when something dies by glowing red, you wouldn't be able to tell if your shots are actually doing anything. This is unfortunately the weakest part of the game by far. The swarms and the bugs themselves look very good. Their movement, their numbers, and their behavior is very solid, but the process of killing them should be way more visceral and way more satisfying than it currently is. I do think having the red marker for you to confirm when something actually died would be good because, you know, given the amount of chaos that's going on, you can't really tell if something stopped moving or not sometimes. But right now, it feels very detached. It doesn't feel good. And, you know, given it's kind of the main thing you're doing in the game, that's not a very cool thing. I'm a bit worried, actually, of whether or not they can improve on this part of the game as substantially as they need to. The sound design can be easily solved, but I'm not sure about the part of blowing up pieces of the bugs themselves. Yes, some particle effects for flesh and blood would be an improvement. Right now, there are some in place when you're using grenades and explosions. There's some visual damage, but it is still too low. And again, when you're shooting, it's like it's not even there. I really hope they improve on this aspect of the game quickly, since many players I talked to felt the same way. Like the shooting just doesn't feel as good as it should. However, despite saying that, the rest of the game is very good. There's 3 different classes of soldier, each with their own perks and tools available to them. There's the standard assault type unit that has a jetpack allowing you to reach good firing positions so you don't get swarmed by the enemy as you're trying to kill them. The heavy class has a defensive shield that he can prop up and a machine gun to mow down enemies with sustained fire. And lastly, the support class can heal people and can also carry the canisters around faster than the other classes because they have this like special backpack for them. So they all complement each other, and there's a nice little progression system that does a solid job at unlocking new weapons and new grenade classes and stuff like that. And it's not convoluted by having to carry out specific assignments to unlock specific things or anything like that. It's just XP based, which I really appreciate. So overall, it's a surprisingly fun game that manages to faithfully adapt Starship Troopers into a game with engaging and exciting gameplay, but also falls off the mark in a couple of aspects like the actual shooting. But that's, you know, what early access is all about. It's all about giving feedback and giving the developers time to make the product better. So hopefully they get there. Let me know down in the comments if you've tried this game out or if you're thinking about trying it after watching this video. Going back to the shooting, it's not a deal breaker, but, you know, it just, yeah, it doesn't feel as good as it should. Alright, that's gonna be it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed watching, then please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching, and I hope I will catch you in the next one.